What is up, everybody? Welcome into episode 40 of the Brahma Bullpen, where we are going to preview Week 6, San Antonio Brahmas traveling to the DC Defenders. Before we get into that, can we just take a minute to sit back and appreciate where we're at? We're in Season 1 of the UFL, Season 2 of the XFL merged, Season 3 of the USFL merged. We're halfway through. I was just thinking the other day, I remember buying my first XFL swag ever, and it was a generic white t-shirt that just said XFL San Antonio across it. You know, thinking back that's now a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, all the question about was San Antonio getting a team, what other seeds were getting teams. Then you had your XFL versus the USFL competing leagues, and then the merger, and then a lot of fan bases lost teams. So I just saw the t-shirt the other day, and I just want to talk to my Bullpen fam right here from the cow pasture and say, what an awesome deal. We're halfway through Season 2 of the Brahmas' existence. The logo is now looking normal. It's like something you expect to see every day. I was wearing my hat around today at work. People recognizing the Brahmas. They want to talk to you about the Brahmas and say go San Antonio. So awesome deal, man. The UFL is coming along. The TV numbers are amazing. Attendance numbers not so much. But I just wanted to start off the episode by just saying, everybody who's watching this, just take a second and reflect slightly on where we're at and how awesome it is that the UFL exists. Hey, and we could be like the Arena Football League that's launching right now with all kinds of cluster going on right now. So just be grateful of what we have, and let's be happy. And we're going to leave this heartfelt moment right there and end it with, go to the games, people. Please, go to the games. All right, on behalf of the United Football Media, let's go ahead and get into our Week 6 preview. We're going to pop up the game graphic. There it is. Bam. Brahma's going to DC. These are the correct UFM power rankings. If you remember my last preview episode, I didn't update my graphic. So right now the Brahmas are ranked number 3. DC has dropped to number 5. The game is going to be Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Time on Fox. By the time I get through the season, man, I'm going to be so accurate with these graphics and times. You're going to be able to just rely on me for anything Brahmas and UFL related. But the game's coming up this weekend. We're excited about it. It's probably going to be the game of the weekend. So these UFM power rankings represent the combined ranking of the entire United Football Media personalities. Some of them are other show hosts, some of them are behind the scenes, some of them are producers, but everybody who's part of the United Football Media gets a vote, and these are the combined rankings here. So they got the Brahmas 3, they got DC number 5. Of course, 1 and 2 are Birmingham, St. Louis 2, respectively. So now, where did I vote? How did the Bullpen vote? Bam, here you go. And I will defend these votes as much as I need to, because, I don't care what anybody else thinks anyways. All right, so Birmingham, hands down, number 1 team in the league. The next slide I'm going to pop up here in a minute is going to be actually the PFF's overall scores through 5 weeks, so you'll kind of see. But St. Louis, number 2, then the Brahmas. I voted them number 3. I still have DC at 4. Basically, that's because they were within one possession of beating Birmingham, which I think, after we see all the blowouts that Birmingham has had throughout this season, actually does mean something. Put Michigan at 5. I do think Michigan had a really good game this past week, but, judging how the Brahmas performed against those two teams, I kind of just gave DC the edge. Memphis at 6. They're doing a little bit better. Troy Williams is kind of playing good. It's just, I think the Arlington and Houston teams are just in such a bad place right now that I couldn't even justify putting any of them over Memphis. Even though Memphis is in a bad spot right now. But I think the top 5 are pretty solid. I think you can interchange DC and Michigan just based upon, your bias of XFL versus USFL. But, I think those two teams are pretty close, and it'd be interesting to see them play each other, right? Getting into more of these team rankings, Pro Football PFF scores here. No doubt Birmingham's the number one team in the league, scoring an 87.9 overall. Look at the point differential. They've scored 32 and given up 68. I mean, just let that sink in, right? Like scoring almost twice as much as what they're giving up. That's winning football. Look down to Battlehawks number 2, 151. They've scored 151 points. They've given up 95. That is a great ratio. You get down to everybody else, the ratios get a little closer, right? Look at the San Antonio Brahmas. We've scored 115, given up 86. Every game the Brahmas have been in have been a one-possession game, right? The Brahmas win close games. We lost to St. Louis by one score. We've covered that in the past. But the point differential is not near as spread out as the top two teams. You get down to Michigan. They've scored 109, given up 93. They're 3-2. That's why they have a winning record. They've scored more than they've given up. Overall score is a 71.1. So if you look at the metrics, Michigan's actually pretty damn close to the Brahmas, but the Brahmas did beat Michigan. So, hey, Brahmas are better, right? Get down to teams 5 and 6, dude. I mean, look at this. The Arlington Renegades are 0-5. And they're still ranked higher than DC. Last week, it was by 1/10 of a point. So Arlington lost to the Brahmas and actually gained grounds when you look at just the metric score from PFF, actually gained 5 points over DC, which is wild to think about. It's absolutely crazy that you can lose and be 0-5 and have a team that has 2 wins, even though they did lose this past weekend pretty bad as well. So that's probably why they dropped. But then look at the point differential, 94 to 138, 90 to 125. You can see DC's defense is, giving up more points than they should, and their offense ain't scoring enough. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Pretty simple logic. That cow pasture math is never wrong. Score more points than you give up, and you'll win football games, right? Get down there to Memphis. They score 63.3 overall score. You can see the point differential, 86 to 132. And then Houston down there, the lowest scoring team, 8th in the league, 1-4, 76 points they've given up. And they've scored 76 points and they've given up 116 with an overall score of 61.2 PFF. Kind of crazy to look at those numbers and see a 0-5 team literally ranked higher, stats speaking, and is metrically a word? Metrically speaking, I'll take that as a word, but metrically speaking, ranked higher than Houston Roughnecks. Wild, man. Someone told me that stats aren't everything, but, stats are stats. Numbers don't lie. I'm not saying that Arlington would beat all those teams in the heads up right now, but what I am saying is, if you look at the metrics, they're doing better than 3 teams that actually have some wins. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the stats of the game coming up against DC. You can see the overall PFF scores. The Brahmas at 74.8, DC at 63.6. Look at there's the points scored, points given up metric again. We kind of talked about it. Completion percentage. Pretty much Jordan Ta'amu has taken like every offensive snap for DC, right? At least the vast majority, 99% of them. He may have missed a snap or two when he got hit hard one time. But you can see that his completion percentage is 52%. The Brahmas are 67.6%, a little bit higher completion percentage. You got passing yards here. The Brahmas have over 1,000 passing yards, while DC is at that 892 mark. Get down to the rushing stats. We've kind of been picking on the rushing stats for the Brahmas here lately. And those stats actually got a big boost over this past weekend because our rushing attack was just amazing this past weekend when we played Arlington. 431 yards, 4.2 yards a carry. I like that 4.2 yard carry in average, right? Run the ball 3 times, you got 12 yards, bam, first down, right? Cow pasture math. It's never wrong, folks. Cow pasture math always works out. You look at the rushing yards for DC, 3.7. It's respectable. Run the ball 3 times, you're going to get just right at the 10-yard mark that you need to get. And that's kind of how a dummy from the cow pasture look at those yards per carry averages. You look at the defenses between the two teams. Brahma's defense, 75, and the DC defense at a 62. Brahmas have the third best defense in the league, rankings-wise. And then get down to the quarterback hits and sacks, right? We'll kind of talk a little bit later about the O-line differences between the two teams. But you can see the Brahmas defensive line, they have hit quarterback 15 times, and we currently have 20 sacks. So there's 35 times one of our rushers have smacked a quarterback on the other team. And we'll see why that's concerning later, because DC's O-line not doing that great. DC's QB hit to sack ratio, 15 hits, 14 sacks, 29. That's respectable. They got a couple of D linemen that are actually pretty good there. And then receiving percentage is almost equal. We look at that to make sure our cornerbacks and safeties are doing their job. And, you might not always think about this, but the linebackers are huge as far as receiving percentage, because the linebackers got to cover the tight ends, right? So DC's been struggling this year. I don't know. We'll get into the game predictions later, but I'm going to show you 3 little videos, and we'll kind of react to them. And it'll pretty much explain to you why that overall defensive score for the defenders is a 62, right? So let's just go ahead and watch video 1.
Kickoffs from the 20, and Paxton Brooks gets it away to Blake Jackson from just inside his 20. Has a seam out to midfield. And the former D3 quarterback with a burst up the sideline. And a stiff.
Okay, I know that was kickoff coverage, but understand that majority of these special teams cover guys on the kickoff teams are starters, or at least are part of the rotation for the defense. So you can see the inability to tackle. And I think that is a trend that we're starting to see with DC. Let's watch this other video.
Second down for the Battlehawks. And McCarron sets up the screen. Here is Sailors. The former FCS All-American goes barreling for a first down to the 20. Wayne Gallman is the running back this time. They give it to him. Gallman's got a lane. Gallman cuts inside the 10 and takes.
You see that? Never the first guy made a tackle on those 2 clips. It was the third guy on the second clip and the fourth guy on the first one there. So it's 3 or 4 defenders are hitting the running backs before they're going down. Let's watch this other clip.
Another high snap. Perez sidearms one, and a trick play as they lateral it to Davion Smith, and Smith dragging defenders.
I mean, what are you going to do? You just cannot tackle anybody. You're not going to win football games that way. And you see, I didn't just use the St. Louis Battlehawks as my lone example, right? 0-5 Arlington Renegades, and you see what the defense there is doing, just struggling and making tackles. It doesn't get any easier for you, DC folks, when the Brahmas come to town. Our wideouts are fast. Our wideouts are shifty. I mean, you saw what our running game did last week to Arlington. Our O-line is stacked. It's not going to be easy tackling. It's just not going to be easy tackling. Let's throw up this O-line graphic right here. So we went through and kind of pulled this O-line graphic and compared DC to the Brahmas, O-line to O-line. First thing I want to point out, they're a PR number all the way to the right. If you look all the way to the right, that's pressures allowed. That's like how many times as an offensive lineman you've actually allowed a pressure to get to your quarterback, right? And then look at the offensive plays, right? Every one of the guys in the DC, 266 plays, 248 plays, 293 plays, 293 plays, 197 plays, 293 plays. These guys are in the ball game. They are starters. Look at the pressures they're giving up. Okay, Mays has given up 23 pressures this season. He's given up 3 sacks, right? Now look down to the Brahmas. Here's the Brahma starters. Now the Brahmas, we've lost our starting center. We've lost a guard. We've lost a tackle. Some of these guys that are actually on this list are on injured reserve right now. But these are the guys that had the most snaps, and we're trying to compare, functionality to functionality. You can't always get an exact apples to apples. But look at the pressures allowed: 5, 5, 5, 3, 3. It's crazy. If you look at the sacks there, 0, 0, 3, 0, 0. And Falega is one of those guys that is actually a second string tackle, right? But just looking at the number of the snaps these guys are taking and the pressures they're giving up, this one little graphic right here basically just shows you how dominant the Brahmas O-line is when compared directly to the DC O-line. The other thing we're going to kind of look at and talk about the importance of this game, we're going to put these two schedules right next to each other. I left out the non-conference games, right? So week one, we'll start with the DC. Week one, they lost to the Brahmas. They're in week 5, they lost to St. Louis, and then they got 2 conference wins. I put an extra W there, my bad. But they did get those conference wins. That W over Birmingham should not be there. They did not beat Birmingham, so that's my bad. But so right now, halfway through the season, they got 3 conference wins. They got 3 conference games left, okay? And the reason why we're talking about this is because playoffs are coming. They play the Brahmas at home in DC this weekend, and then they play St. Louis on the road, and then they're home against Arlington. So we're going to pretty much chalk up the W to Arlington, right? We're going to assume St. Louis doesn't regress, and they beat DC again, because they beat DC pretty handily. So that will actually give DC 2 conference wins, not counting the Brahmas game, right? So then you look at the Brahmas schedule over here. They got the win versus DC, the loss versus St. Louis, and the win versus Arlington. We left the DC game unmarked. We're going to pick those games here in a little bit, but we got 2 games left. I'm a realist. We got the Brahmas losing to St. Louis last game of the season, but we have them beating Arlington again, this time in the Dome. We already beat them on their field. Now we're going to get them on our field. We would think that would actually make that point margin grow a little bit. So you see the Brahmas have three conference wins. You look over at DC right now, the 2 conference wins. So if Brahmas win this weekend, it pretty much makes it to where they're locked for the number 2 playoff spot, right? They're going to just take control of the conference. They're going to put DC in a real tough situation. All the Brahmas got to do is focus on winning this weekend. DC has a lot to play for, right? This is basically the playoffs for them. They're going to come out hot. They're going to come out pissed off. And Brahmas are going to have to be ready. They're going to have to take those punches to get started. Getting into the rest of the league, we've been doing the win-loss predictions. So right now, I went 2-2 last week. Doubled my losses for the year last week. So, I picked DC to beat St. Louis because maybe I selfishly want to be the first team to beat DC in Audi Field. But anyways, I digress. This week, Stallions going 2 showboats. I don't think anybody needs an explanation there. Stallions going to take that, even though Memphis is at home. There might be like 35 people in the stands for Memphis. Who knows, right? Roughnecks going to St. Louis. There ain't no way 30,000 people in the Battle Dome are not going to impact this game. And then, of course, St. Louis, best team in the XFL conference. XFL is going to continue to assert its dominance over the USFL conference. You heard that right here. Yes, sir. We're going to continue to assert XFL superiority over USFL teams. I definitely think Battlehawks takes that win. Renegades going to Michigan. If I hadn't seen that stellar running attack for Michigan last week, I would take Arlington in this game. But I think Michigan's running game is going to be on point again. We saw what the Brahmas running game did to Arlington, right? We ran all over them last week, so I don't think the Renegades are going to stop them. As much as I want to root and pull for the Renegades to win this game, I just don't think there's enough adjustments that can be made in 1 week time for them to be able to get this win. And then Brahmas going to DC. Look, my head is telling me to pick DC, but my heart, the yellow and black heart, is telling me to go with the Brahmas. And you know what they say. I'm too stupid to go with my head, so I'm going with my heart. I am going to pick the Brahmas to lock themselves in to the number 2 spot in the XL Conference, get the win this weekend in DC, 27-19. I think our running game is coming with us to DC. I don't think DC's D-line and front 7 are ready for it. I think our offensive passing game, we already got that that sophomore slump, that Quentin Dormady coming out throwing three INTs out of the way. That ain't happening again this week. He's going to be careful with the ball. He's going to be coached up all week. And, we're going to put fresh batteries in the helmet so his helmet battery ain't going to go dead so he can communicate with the sideline. Like everything that happened last week and the craziness that was is going to be fixed this week. I expect Dormady to come out on fire, 65-plus passing percentage I'm predicting. I'm saying at least 180-plus yards and no turnovers. Our running game is going to continue. I don't think we're going to have the 191-yard performance, but we're definitely going to rush for over 100 yards in this game. 27-19, we're probably going to get at least one turnover. Watch for our cornerbacks to shut down DC's receivers. Watch for our front seven to dominate the struggling O-line of DC. Jordan Ta'amu has a 52% completion percentage of the season, and it is not going to get any better this weekend. He is going to be running for his life. Delonte Scott is back. We'll see if Ray gets back in the game, but even if Ray don't get back in the game, the rest of our D-line has, with Tim Ward, have plenty of opportunity to rush that passer. And if you remember, Tim Ward was dropped by DC, so maybe this is like a little revenge game where he wants to go in there and dominate these fools and show them, hey man, you shouldn't have dropped me because I'm a badass. I think I could say that on YouTube. Tim Ward, you the man. Delonte Scott, let's get some sacks. We're gonna close this preview for Week 6 right there. Go to the game, people. People, go to the game. On behalf of the United Football Media, from the cow pasture, this is the Brahma Bullpen saying later, yo.